The morning sun cast long shadows across the green fields of New Hanyang. Kim Tae-ho wiped sweat from his forehead as he checked the water pipes in his farm. The crops grew tall and healthy in the alien soil. This planet was good to them. It gave them food, clean air, and peace. Tae-ho was a big man with strong hands. His black hair showed some gray now and old scars marked his arms. But his eyes were gentle when he looked at his family. He had been a soldier once, long ago. Now he was just a farmer who wanted nothing more than quiet days. "Dad," called a young voice from across the field. 8-year-old Kim Da-yoon ran toward him, her school bag bouncing on her back. Her dark hair flew behind her like a banner. In her small hands she held a blue crystal that glowed softly in the sunlight. "Look what I found near the Velthani village," she said, holding up the crystal. "Teacher Hyejin says it might be special." Tae-ho knelt down to look at the crystal. It was beautiful, with light dancing inside it like captured starfire. The Velthani, the tall native people of this world, made things like this. They were peaceful beings who spoke with lights instead of words. "It is special," he said, touching his daughter's cheek. "Just like you." Da-yoon giggled and hugged him tight. Her small arms could barely reach around his broad chest. Tae-ho closed his eyes and held her close. This was what mattered. Not the wars he had fought among the stars, not the enemies he had killed. Just this moment with his little girl. "Tae-ho," called another voice. Park So-young walked toward them from the house. She was a beautiful woman with kind eyes and a gentle smile. She wore a white lab coat over her simple clothes. As a scientist, she studied the plants and animals of New Hanyang. But as a mother and wife, she was the heart of their small family. "Lunch is ready," she said, kissing Tae-ho on the cheek. "And you have dirt all over your face." "I like dirt," Da-eun announced. "It smells like growing things." So-young laughed and took her daughter's hand. "Come on, little scientist. Let's wash up." They walked back to their house together. It was a simple building made of local stone and earth metal. Solar panels on the roof caught the sun's energy. A small garden grew near the front door, where So-young tested which earth plants could grow in alien soil. Inside, the house was warm and comfortable. Pictures of their old life on Earth hung on the walls next to new photos of their life here. The kitchen smelled like So-young's cooking, a mix of Korean spices and local ingredients. As they ate, Da-eun chattered about her day at school. She had learned about the Velthani language of lights. She had found 3 new types of flowers. She had helped her teacher fix a broken computer. "The Velthani elder Shimar came to visit our class today," Da-yoon said between bites of rice. "He showed us how to make the crystals sing. It was amazing." Tae-ho smiled. The Velthani were good neighbors. They had welcomed the human colonists with open arms. They shared their knowledge of the planet freely. In return, the humans shared their technology and helped build better homes for everyone. After lunch, So-young went back to her lab. She was working on a project to help Velthani plants grow better. Da-yoon went to play with her friends in the village center. Tae-ho returned to his fields, but first he stopped by his workshop. The workshop was behind the house, hidden from casual view. Inside, it looked like any farmer's tool shed. But Tae-ho touched a hidden panel and part of the wall slid away. Behind it was another room filled with different kinds of tools. These were not farming tools. They were weapons and military equipment from his old life. Plasma rifles hung on the walls. Armor suits stood in neat rows. Communication devices and tactical computers lined the shelves. Everything was clean and ready, though he hoped he would never need any of it again. Tae-ho had been a good soldier. He had fought in the expansion wars when humanity first reached for the stars. He had protected colony ships from pirates. He had built defense systems on a dozen worlds. But war was ugly, even when it was necessary. When Da-eun was born, he had decided to leave that life behind. He locked the hidden room and went back to his normal work. The afternoon passed peacefully. He fixed a broken water pump. He harvested vegetables for the market. He checked on the young fruit trees that would feed the colony for years to come. As the sun began to set, his friend Lee Woo-jin arrived. Woo-jin was the colony administrator, the man who made sure everything ran smoothly. He was older than Tae-ho, with gray hair and tired eyes. Running a colony was hard work. "How are things in town?" Tae-ho asked, offering his friend a cup of tea. "Good, mostly," Woo-jin said, sitting on the porch. "The new families from Earth are settling in well. The trade talks with the Velthani are going smoothly. We might be able to export some of their crystals soon. They sat in comfortable silence watching the two suns of New Hanyang set behind the mountains. In the distance, they could see the lights of the Veltani city. The tall, graceful buildings glowed with soft colors as the natives communicated in their light language. "Do you ever miss it?" Wu Jin asked suddenly. "Miss what?" "The old life. The excitement. The feeling that you were making a difference in the galaxy." Taeho thought for a moment. "Sometimes," he admitted. "But then I remember why I left." "Look around, Wu Jin. This is making a difference. We're building something here, something good and peaceful." So Young and Dayun returned as the stars began to appear. Dayun ran to show her father another crystal, this one green and gold. So Young carried a sample case full of plant specimens she wanted to study. They had dinner together on the porch, watching the night sky. New Hanyang's position let them see more stars than Earth ever could. The galaxy spread above them like a jeweled blanket, full of worlds and possibilities. "Tell me a story, Dad," Daun asked, curled up against his side. Taeho told her about the brave explorers who first found New Hanyang. He made up adventures about friendly aliens and crystal-powered spaceships. He did not tell her about the real galaxy, where some aliens were not friendly at all, where warships moved between the stars like hungry wolves, where people like him had fought and died to keep the darkness away from places like this. She did not need to know about that. Not yet. Maybe not ever if he was lucky. After Daun fell asleep, Taeho carried her to bed. So Young tucked her in with a soft kiss on her forehead. They stood together in the doorway, watching their daughter sleep peacefully. "She's growing up so fast," So Young whispered. "Too fast," Taeho agreed. They went to their own room, tired from the day's work. Through the window they could see the peaceful lights of their neighbors. Human and Velthani families living side by side, children playing together despite being different species, old enemies of humanity trading and learning together. This was what they had built on New Hanyang. This was what was worth protecting. As Taeho drifted off to sleep, he felt grateful for his quiet life. He had no idea that tomorrow everything would change. He had no idea that his peaceful world was about to be torn apart by forces that cared nothing for the lives they would destroy. For now, there was only peace, only the sound of his family breathing beside him, only the gentle light of alien crystals glowing in the darkness, like stars that had fallen to Earth and decided to stay. The first sign of trouble came at dawn. Taeho was feeding the chickens when the sky began to darken, but there were no clouds above New Hanyang. Instead, massive shapes blocked out the sun. Ships. Huge black ships that looked like metal mountains floating in the air. Taeho dropped the feed bucket and ran toward the house. "So Young, Dayun, get inside now." His wife appeared in the doorway, already holding their daughter. So Young's face was pale with fear. She had seen ships like these before in old war broadcasts. "Everyone had. Are those Corvin ships?" she asked, her voice barely a whisper. Taeho nodded grimly. The Corvin hegemony was bad news. They were a military empire that took what they wanted and destroyed what they could not use. They had been expanding across the galaxy for decades, crushing anyone who stood in their way. "Get to the emergency shelter," Taeho said, running to his workshop. "Take the emergency supplies. Stay hidden until I come for you." "What about you?" So Young called after him. "I need to contact the colony center. Wu Jin will need help organizing the evacuation." That was partly true, but Taeho also needed to get to his hidden weapons. If the Corvins were here, they were not here to trade or negotiate. They were here to take everything and kill anyone who got in their way. The hidden room opened at his touch. Taeho grabbed a communication device and contacted the colony center. Wu Jin's voice crackled through the static. "Taeho, thank God. Are you seeing this? Hard to miss." "What's the situation?" "Bad. They're demanding we evacuate immediately. All humans and Velthani must leave the planet within 48 hours. They claim New Hanyang belongs to the hegemony now." Through his workshop window, Taeho could see smaller ships descending from the massive vessels above. They landed hard in the fields, crushing crops and buildings. Soldiers in black armor poured out, weapons ready. "What about the Federation? Have you contacted Earth?" "I've sent distress signals, but we're in the outer rim. Help won't come for weeks, if at all. We're on our own." Taeho watched as Corvin soldiers approached a group of Velthani workers. The tall, graceful aliens tried to communicate with their light language, probably asking what was happening. The soldiers responded by shooting them down where they stood. "They're killing civilians," Taeho said, his voice cold and hard. "Wu Jin, we need to organize a defense." A defense? Tejo, look at those ships. We're farmers and scientists, not soldiers. We can't fight them. Maybe you can't. But I can. There was silence on the communication channel. Wu Jin knew about Taiho's military background, but he had never seen his friend as anything but a peaceful farmer. What are you thinking? Wu Jin asked finally. I'm thinking these bastards picked the wrong planet to invade. Get everyone to the emergency shelters. I'll buy us time to figure out a real plan. Taiho grabbed weapons and armor from his hidden collection. The old military gear felt familiar in his hands, like greeting an old friend he had hoped never to see again. He had wanted to leave this life behind, but sometimes the past came looking for you whether you wanted it or not. He found So Young and Da-Yun in the underground shelter beneath their house. It was a small room with thick walls, designed to protect against storms or accidents. So Young was trying to keep Da-Yun calm, but the little girl could hear the explosions and gunfire outside. Daddy, what's happening? Da-Yun asked, tears in her eyes. Taiho knelt down and took her hands. Bad people have come to our planet, but I'm going to help stop them. You need to stay here with Mom and be very quiet, okay? Are you going to fight them? She asked. Taiho looked into his daughter's innocent eyes. How could he explain that sometimes good people had to do terrible things to protect what they loved? I'm going to protect our home, he said simply. And I'm going to protect you. He kissed her forehead and hugged So Young tight. Keep her safe, he whispered. No matter what happens, keep her safe. Outside, the invasion was getting worse. Corvin soldiers moved through the colony in organized groups, destroying anything that looked important. They set fire to the school, the medical center, and the research labs. Black smoke rose into the sky like funeral pyres. Taiho met with other colonists at the emergency rally point. Most were terrified civilians, but a few had military backgrounds like his. Han Minho had been a Federation Marine. Choi Heejin knew communications and electronics. Park Dongsu could pilot aircraft. Listen to me, Taiho told the small group. The Corvins think we're helpless farmers. That's our advantage. They're not expecting real resistance. What can we do against ships like that? Minho asked, pointing at the massive vessels overhead. We can't fight the ships, but we can fight the soldiers. Make them pay for every step they take. Show them that humans don't give up easily. They split up to organize hit-and-run attacks. Taiho used his engineering knowledge to turn farming equipment into weapons. Tractors became mobile gun platforms. Irrigation pumps became improvised explosives. Fertilizer and fuel became bombs. The first Corvin patrol that entered the residential area walked into a carefully planned ambush. Hidden fighters struck from multiple directions, then melted away before the aliens could respond. It was a small victory, but it showed that the colonists could fight back. Commander Vextar, the leader of the Corvin invasion force, was not amused. He was a tall reptilian creature with cold yellow eyes and razor-sharp teeth. His black armor was decorated with the bones of his enemies. He had conquered 12 worlds for the hegemony, and he did not intend to be stopped by a few human farmers. Captain Nalthek, he hissed to his subordinate. These humans are more troublesome than expected. Increase the pressure. I want this resistance crushed within 12 hours. Captain Nalthek was smaller than his commander, but just as cruel. His specialty was breaking the spirit of conquered peoples. Should we target the civilian shelters, sir? Not yet. First, let them see what happens to those who fight us. Make examples. Then they will surrender quickly enough. The Corvins began hunting for the human fighters with deadly efficiency. They used scanning devices to find hidden positions. They brought in heavier weapons to destroy improvised fortifications. They captured and executed anyone suspected of helping the resistance. Taiho watched from a hidden position as Corvin soldiers dragged Elder Shimar from the Velthani village. The old alien had been like a grandfather to Da-Yun, teaching her about crystal singing and the harmony of nature. Now the soldiers forced him to his knees and shot him in front of his own people. Something cold and terrible awakened in Taiho's heart. He had tried to leave his warrior's soul behind, but it had never really gone away. It had just been sleeping, waiting for a reason to wake up. The Corvins wanted to break the colonists' spirit with fear and cruelty. Instead, they had awakened something much more dangerous. They had reminded a retired soldier why he had learned to fight in the first place. As night fell over New Hanyang, fires burned across the colony. Corvin ships patrolled the skies like metal vultures. In the distance, more transports were landing, bringing fresh troops and heavier weapons. But in the darkness between the fires, human fighters moved like ghosts. They struck at isolated patrols. They sabotaged equipment and supply lines. They rescued civilians and moved them to safer hiding places. And in his hidden shelter, Kim Tae-ho planned their next move. He studied maps of the colony, marking Corvin positions and weak points. He calculated angles and timing for maximum effect. He prepared for a war he had hoped never to fight again. The Corvins thought they were conquering a helpless farming world. Tomorrow they would learn that some farmers used to be soldiers. And some soldiers never really stopped being warriors. The invasion of New Hanyang had begun. But so had the resistance. And Kim Tae-ho was just getting started. 3 days had passed since the invasion began. The Corvin forces controlled most of New Hanyang, but they were learning that controlling ground and controlling people were two different things. Every street corner could hide an ambush. Every building might contain a bomb. Every shadow might conceal a fighter with nothing left to lose. Tae-ho crouched behind the ruins of what used to be the market square. His armor was scratched and dented from 3 days of fighting. His rifle was running low on ammunition, but his eyes still burned with determination. Beside him, Minho checked his weapon nervously. The young Marine had proven himself brave in battle, but the odds were getting worse every hour. More Corvin ships kept arriving. More soldiers. More weapons. How many civilians are still trapped in the school? Tae-ho asked Hyejin, who monitored their communication network. 43, she replied, her voice tight with worry. Mostly children. The Corvins have them surrounded. Tae-ho's jaw clenched. The school had been turned into an emergency shelter when the invasion began. Now it was a trap. The Corvins were using the children as bait, hoping to draw out the remaining fighters. It's a trap, Minho said. They want us to try a rescue so they can kill us all at once. I know it's a trap, Tae-ho replied. But we can't leave those kids. He thought of Da-eun, safe in her hiding place with So Young. At least he hoped she was safe. He had not been able to check on them for 2 days. The Corvins were watching his house too closely. What's the plan? Hyejin asked. Tae-ho studied the school building through his scope. Corvin soldiers had set up a perimeter around it. Heavy weapons covered all the approaches. It would be suicide to attack directly. We go in through the old storm drains, he said finally. The tunnels connect to the school basement. We can get the children out a few at a time, then collapse the tunnels behind us. It was not a perfect plan. It was barely even a good plan. But it was the only chance those children had. They moved through the ruined streets like ghosts. The once beautiful colony looked like a war zone now. Buildings were burned and broken. Bodies lay in the streets, human and Velthani alike. The crystal gardens that had sparkled in the sunlight were now dark and lifeless. The storm drain entrance was hidden beneath a pile of rubble. It took them 20 minutes to clear it without making noise. The tunnel beyond was narrow and dark, filled with stagnant water and the smell of fear. They crawled for what felt like hours. Behind them, explosions echoed through the night as other resistance cells struck at Corvin positions. Tae-ho hoped they would keep the enemy busy long enough for the rescue to work. The tunnel emerged in the school's basement, just as Tae-ho had remembered. Above them they could hear voices, children crying, adults trying to comfort them, and the harsh voices of Corvin guards. Stay here, Tae-ho whispered to his team. I'll scout ahead. He climbed the stairs carefully, weapon ready. The main floor of the school was dark except for a few emergency lights. Corvin soldiers patrolled the hallways, their heavy footsteps echoing off the walls. In the main classroom, Tae-ho found them. 43 civilians huddled together in the center of the room. Most were children between 5 and 12 years old. Their teacher, Mrs. Song, held them close, whispering gentle words to keep them calm. And there, among the other children, was Da-eun. Tae-ho's heart stopped. His daughter was supposed to be safe in the shelter with So Young. What was she doing here? Then he remembered. Today was the day the children were supposed to visit the Velthani Crystal Gardens. Da-eun must have been on that field trip when the invasion began. So Young probably did not even know where she was. 6 Corvin soldiers guarded the room. They looked bored and careless, not expecting any real threat. That was their mistake. Tae-ho activated his communicator and sent a silent signal to his team. Then he moved like a shadow, striking fast and quiet. The first guard went down without a sound. The second turned just in time to see death coming for him. The other 4 guards realized they were under attack, but it was too late. Minho and the others burst into the room from different directions. The fight was over in seconds. "Daddy!" Dayun's voice cut through the chaos like a knife through his heart. She ran to him, and he caught her in his arms, holding her tight. For a moment, nothing else mattered. Not the war. Not the danger. Just his little girl safe in his arms. "What are you doing here?" he whispered. "We were visiting the Crystal Garden when the bad men came," she said, tears streaming down her face. "I was so scared, Daddy, I thought you were gone." "I'm here now," he said, stroking her hair. "I'm here." But even as he held her, he could hear more Corvin soldiers approaching. Their rescue had been discovered. "The trap was closing. Everyone into the tunnel," he shouted. "Move! Move!" Mrs. Song and the other adults began herding the children toward the basement. Hejin helped the smallest ones down the stairs. Minho covered the rear, watching for pursuit. But the Corvins were faster than expected. Heavy footsteps thundered through the hallways. Voices shouted orders in their harsh language. The building shook as they brought up heavy weapons. "There are too many of them," Minho called out. "We're not going to make it!" Taeho looked at the children streaming into the tunnel. Most were through, but not all. Dayun was still in the room helping a younger boy who had hurt his leg. The main door exploded inward. Corvin soldiers poured through the opening, weapons blazing. Red energy bolts filled the air, scorching the walls and floor. "Get down," Taeho shouted, pushing Da-un behind an overturned desk. He returned fire, his rifle barking in the darkness. But there were too many of them. For every soldier he dropped, 2 more took their place. Captain Nalthek stepped through the doorway, his weapon trained on the cowering children. His cold eyes swept the room, taking in the dead guards and the obvious escape route. "Enough!" he barked. "Surrender now or I start killing the younglings." Taeho's finger tightened on his trigger. He could probably kill Nalthek, but not before the other soldiers opened fire, and there were still children in the room, including his own daughter. "You have nowhere to run, human," Nalthek continued. "Drop your weapons and maybe I will let some of them live." Taeho looked at Da-un. She was staring at him with wide, terrified eyes. Trust and fear warred in her expression. She believed her father could save her. She believed in him completely. He could not let her down. "Okay," Taeho said, slowly placing his rifle on the floor. "You win. Just don't hurt the children." Nalthek smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Foolish human. Did you really think you could fight the hegemony? Did you think your pathetic resistance could matter?" "I thought I could protect my daughter," Taeho replied quietly. "Your daughter?" Nalthek looked at Da-un with new interest. "How touching. Perhaps I should make an example of her. Show these colonists what happens when they defy us." He raised his weapon toward Da-un. Something snapped inside Taeho's mind. All his training, all his experience, all his love and rage and desperate fury condensed into a single moment of perfect clarity. He was not fast enough to reach his rifle, but he was fast enough to reach the hidden backup weapon in his armor. Fast enough to draw and fire before Nalthek could react. Fast enough to put a plasma bolt through the alien's chest. The other soldiers opened fire immediately. Energy bolts tore through Taeho's armor, burning into his flesh. He felt ribs crack and organs rupture. But he kept moving, kept fighting, kept buying precious seconds for the children to escape. "Run," he shouted to Mrs. Song. "Get them out of here." He grabbed a grenade from his belt and threw it at the main group of soldiers. The explosion bought him a few more seconds, but it also brought down part of the ceiling. Smoke and dust filled the air. Through the chaos, he saw Da-un trying to reach him. "Daddy, no," he gasped, blood running down his face. "Go with Mrs. Song. Get to the tunnel." More soldiers poured into the room. Taeho's vision was blurring, but he kept fighting. Each shot had to count now. Each second had to buy the children more time to escape. A heavy energy bolt caught him in the shoulder, spinning him around. Another hit his leg, sending him to his knees. But still he fought, still he fired, still he stood between the monsters and the innocents. The last thing he saw was Da-un's face as Mrs. Song pulled her toward the tunnel. His little girl looking back at him with tears in her eyes. Safe, alive, free. With his final breath, Taeho activated the emergency beacon hidden in his armor. The signal burst out across the galaxy, carrying his identity codes and a desperate message to anyone who would listen. Then Kim Taeho, farmer and father and hero, fell silent forever. But his message was already racing toward Earth at the speed of light, carrying news of what had happened on New Hanyang. And on Earth, People who had known Taeho the soldier were about to remember why humanity had conquered half the galaxy. The stand was over. The reckoning was about to begin. The message reached Earth's orbital defense stations at 0347 hours ship time. It was not much to look at, just a burst of coded data traveling faster than light through the galaxy's communication network. But the computers that received it knew exactly what they were seeing. Emergency Protocol 7, military casualty report, alien hostiles engaging human civilians, and most importantly, the identity code of Kim Taeho, decorated veteran of the Centauri campaign. Admiral Park Dong-hyun was drinking his morning coffee when the alert reached his personal communicator. He was a veteran himself, with gray hair and scars from a dozen battles. He had commanded Earth's defense fleets for 10 years, keeping the peace among the stars. But when he read Taeho's final message, his hands began to shake. "Get me General Jae-sung," he barked to his aide. "Priority 1, right now." General Kim Jae-sung arrived within minutes, still in his sleeping clothes. He was the head of strategic operations, the man who planned Earth's military responses to threats across the galaxy. Like Dong-hyun, he was an old soldier who had seen too much war. "What's the emergency?" Jae-sung asked. Dong-hyun handed him a datapad with Taeho's message. As Jae-sung read, his face grew darker and darker. "Jesus," he whispered. "Kim Taeho is dead?" "Killed defending children from Corvan forces," Dong-hyun confirmed. "The bastards invaded New Hanyang 3 days ago. They're slaughtering civilians." Jae-sung sat down heavily. He had known Taeho personally. They had served together during the early expansion wars, when humanity was still learning how dangerous the galaxy could be. Taeho had saved his life twice and the lives of countless others. "How many colonists?" Jae-sung asked. 50,000 humans. Unknown number of Velthani natives, all of them under attack by a full Corvan battle group. Response time for a rescue mission? 2 weeks minimum if we use conventional drives. By then, Dong-hyun did not need to finish the sentence. Jae-sung stood up and walked to the window. Outside, Earth turned slowly in the darkness, blue and beautiful and peaceful. Millions of people down there were sleeping safely, unaware that their fellow humans were dying light years away. "Call an emergency session of the Defense Council," Jae-sung said quietly. "Full mobilization authority. And get me Dr. Yoon Soo-bin from military intelligence." "Sir, are you sure?" "Full mobilization means war, against the entire Corvan hegemony if necessary." Jae-sung turned back to face the Admiral. His eyes were cold as winter stars. "They killed Taeho. They're murdering children. What do you think?" Dr. Yoon Soo-bin arrived at the Defense Council meeting with a briefcase full of intelligence reports. She was young for her position, barely 35, but she was the best xenospecialist in Earth's military. If anyone understood the Corvan hegemony, it was her. "Give us the situation," Dong-hyun ordered as the council members took their seats around the war table. Soo-bin activated the holographic display. Images of New Hanyang appeared above the table, followed by tactical assessments and casualty reports. The Corvan invasion force consists of 12 heavy cruisers and approximately 40,000 troops, she began. They claim New Hanyang's crystal networks are strategic resources needed for their war effort. "What's their real goal?" asked General Park Sun-mi, head of the Marine Corps. "Complete annexation," Soo-bin replied. "Intelligence suggests this is part of a larger expansion plan. They're not just taking the crystals. They're eliminating the population to prevent future resistance." The room fell silent. Everyone understood what that meant: genocide. The systematic murder of an entire colony. "What about the Federation?" asked Admiral Kim Young-ho. "Are they responding?" "The Federation Council is debating sanctions," Soo-bin said with barely concealed disgust. "They'll be arguing for months while people die." General Jae-sung leaned forward. "Show them the recording." Soo-bin hesitated. "Sir, it's difficult to watch." "Show them." The holographic display shifted to show Taeho's final battle. The recording came from his armor's camera system, transmitted along with his emergency beacon. Council members watched in silence as a single man fought desperately to save a room full of children. They watched him take shot after shot, bleeding and burning but never stopping. They watched him fall, still firing, still protecting the innocents behind him. They watched him activate his beacon with his dying breath, sending his final message across the stars. When the recording ended, the silence in the room was deafening. "That man was one of ours," Jae-sung said quietly. "He served with honor. He earned his peace, and they murdered him for protecting children. Admiral Dong Hyun stood up. The question before us is simple. Do we let this stand? Do we allow the Corvins to believe they can murder human civilians without consequence? What about the political implications? Asked General Song Kyung-ho. If we respond with force, it could destabilize the entire region. Let it be destabilized, said General Sunmi. Some things are more important than politics. Subin pulled up another display showing Corvin expansion patterns. Our intelligence indicates this is not an isolated incident. The hegemony has attacked 17 colonies in the past year. They test our responses. If we do nothing here, they'll escalate. What are our options? Dong Hyun asked. Option 1, diplomatic protest through Federation channels. Estimated effectiveness 0. Estimated timeline, years. Option 2, limited military response. Send a patrol fleet to negotiate. Risk they'll use our people as hostages. Option 3, full military response. Overwhelming force. Make it clear that attacking human civilians has consequences. The debate continued for hours. Some council members argued for caution. Others demanded immediate action. But as the hours passed, more reports came in from New Hanyang. More casualties, more atrocities. Finally, Admiral Dong Hyun called for a vote. All in favor of option 3, full military response. 7 hands rose around the table, all opposed. 2 hands rose, then slowly lowered. Motion carries. We go to war. Within minutes of the vote, orders flashed out across Earth's orbital facilities. The Sol Defense Fleet began the largest mobilization since the Species Wars 50 years earlier. Massive dreadnoughts that had been mothballed for decades were brought back online. Cruiser squadrons prepared for extended deployment. Carrier groups launched their fighters for combat exercises. Supply ships loaded ammunition and medical supplies. But the most important orders went to a special facility hidden in the asteroid belt. The Prometheus station had been humanity's most secret project for 20 years. Now it was time to see if their investment had paid off. The Velthani survivors on New Hanyang had shared their crystal communication technology with Earth decades earlier. Human scientists had been studying it ever since, trying to understand how information could travel instantly across any distance. They had finally cracked the secret 6 months ago. Now they could communicate with any point in the galaxy in real time. More importantly, they could coordinate military operations across hundreds of light years with perfect timing. Admiral Dong Hyun established his command center on the flagship Righteous Fury. Around him, the largest fleet in human history prepared for battle. Hundreds of ships, thousands of fighters, millions of tons of firepower. General Jae Sung coordinated with colony worlds across human space. Ships that had been protecting trade routes were recalled. Marine units that had been training for peacekeeping missions were retasked for assault operations. Every available resource was committed to the mission. Sir, reported Captain Oh Seung-woo, the Righteous Fury's commander. Fleet reports ready for departure. 347 ships of the line. Estimated arrival at New Hanyang 18 hours. Dong Hyun nodded. 18 hours. The Velthani crystals made it possible to coordinate the jump with perfect precision. The entire fleet would arrive at exactly the same moment, emerging from hyperspace in perfect battle formation. Signal to all ships, Dong Hyun ordered. Tae-ho died protecting children. Today we honor his sacrifice. Today we show the galaxy what happens when you murder our people. Dr. Subin appeared on the command screen from her intelligence center. Admiral, we're receiving new transmissions from the Corvin fleet. They're broadcasting the executions. They want us to see what they're doing to the survivors. Dong Hyun's face turned to stone. Then they'll see what we do to them. All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Target New Hanyang system. Mission total destruction of enemy forces. He paused, thinking of Tae-ho's daughter somewhere in the ruins of her world. Thinking of all the other children who needed someone to stand up for them. And send a message to the Corvin commander. Tell him a human fell defending their child. Tell him Earth has answered. The fleet jumped to hyperspace in perfect unison, carrying Earth's judgment toward the stars. Behind them, more ships continued to launch, carrying supplies and reinforcements. The entire might of human civilization was awakening, focused on a single goal. The Corvins had wanted to test humanity's resolve. They were about to get their answer. In 18 hours, they would learn why humans had conquered half the galaxy. They would learn why even the bravest aliens spoke of Earth's fleets in whispered tones. They would learn that some things should never be tested. The message was sent. The fleet was coming, and somewhere in the ruins of New Hanyang, a little girl's tears would soon be answered with fire and vengeance. Commander Vextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching the fires burn across New Hanyang's surface. The human resistance had finally been crushed after 4 days of fighting. Their cities were ruins. Their people were dead or captured. Soon, the valuable crystals would be stripped from the planet and shipped to hegemony worlds. Report, he ordered his communications officer. All major population centers are under our control, Commander. Remaining human survivors have been gathered for processing. The Velthani natives continue to resist in the mountain regions, but they pose no real threat. Vextar smiled, showing his razor teeth. And the human fleet? Any response from their precious Federation? Nothing, sir. A few diplomatic protests, but no military action. As expected, they are too weak to challenge us directly. That was good news. The hegemony had been testing human resolve for months, probing their defenses and response times. Each successful raid made them bolder. Each unanswered attack proved that humans were soft, more concerned with trade than war. Excellent. Begin full extraction operations. I want those crystals harvested and loaded within 48 hours. Then we burn what's left and move on to the next target. But as he spoke, something began to happen in the space around New Hanyang. The stars began to shimmer and twist as if reality itself was bending. Vextar had seen this effect before, but never on such a massive scale. "Sir," shouted the sensor operator. "Hyperspace signatures?" Multiple contacts dropping out of FTL. The first ship emerged like a silver ghost materializing from the void. It was huge. A kilometer-long dreadnought bristling with weapons. Its hull bore the blue and white colors of Earth's defense fleet. Then came another. And another. And another. Within seconds, the space around New Hanyang was filled with human warships. Hundreds of them arranged in perfect battle formation. They had emerged from hyperspace with impossible precision, coordinated down to the microsecond. "How many ships?" Vextar demanded, his confident smile fading. 347 confirmed contacts, sir. Dreadnoughts, battlecruisers, carriers, destroyers. It's the entire Sol Defense Fleet. On the bridge of the Righteous Fury, Admiral Dong-Hyun surveyed the tactical display with cold satisfaction. Every ship had emerged exactly where planned. Every weapon system was online and ready. The Corvin fleet looked small and scattered compared to Earth's organized formation. "Signal from the Corvin flagship," reported the communications officer. "They're requesting to negotiate." "Tell them we don't negotiate with child killers," Dong-Hyun replied. "All ships, battle stations, prepare to engage." Captain Sung-woo leaned over the tactical console. "Sir, we have clear target locks on all enemy vessels. The Corvins are trying to scatter, but they're not fast enough. Then let's show them what happens when you murder our people. All ships open fire." The space around New Hanyang erupted in light and fury. Earth's fleet unleashed a coordinated barrage that turned night into day. Plasma cannons, particle beams, and missile salvos reached out across the void with deadly precision. The first Corvin ship to die was a heavy cruiser that had been bombarding civilian shelters. It simply vanished in a ball of fire and vaporized metal. The second was a destroyer that had been hunting resistance fighters. The third was a troop transport full of soldiers who would never see home again. Commander Vextar watched his fleet die around him with growing horror. The humans weren't just attacking randomly. They were targeting specific ships with surgical precision, destroying the vessels that had committed the worst atrocities first. "Return fire," he screamed. "All ships engage the human fleet." The Corvin ships tried to fight back, but they were outnumbered and outgunned. Their weapons sparked harmlessly off the humans' advanced shields. Their desperate maneuvers only delayed the inevitable. On the planet's surface, Major Limnari led her Special Forces units through the ruined streets of the main colony. Her soldiers moved like shadows, striking at Corvin positions with deadly efficiency. Each squad carried the names of civilian victims carved into their armor. "Alpha Team, report," she said into her communicator. "Guard Post 7 is down. Major. 15 enemy casualties, no friendly losses. We found 12 human prisoners alive, and good work. Bravo, team. Command bunker secured. We captured the officer who ordered the school massacre. He's requesting medical attention." Nari's voice turned ice cold. "Medical attention denied. Continue the mission." Sergeant Kwon Hyun-soo's Marines had landed near the emergency shelters where the surviving colonists were hidden. They moved through the underground tunnels with practiced skill. clearing out Corvin soldiers who had been hunting for hidden civilians. "Contact front," called one of the Marines as energy bolts lit up the narrow passage. Hyun-soo and his team responded with overwhelming firepower. Their advanced weapons turned the tunnel into a killing field. The Corvin soldiers fell one by one, their alien screams echoing off the stone walls. "Area clear," Hyun-soo reported, moving to the next shelter. In space, the battle was already over. The last Corvin ship, Commander Vextar's flagship, hung dead in the void. Its engines were destroyed, its weapons were offline, and its hull was breached in a dozen places. Admiral Dong-hyun received a communication request from the dying ship. He accepted it, curious to hear what the alien commander had to say. Vextar appeared on the screen, his reptilian face bloodied and desperate. Behind him, smoke and sparks filled his ruined bridge. You cannot do this," he gasped. "The hegemony will not stand for such aggression. There will be consequences." "The consequences have already begun," Dong-hyun replied calmly. "You invaded a peaceful world. You murdered civilians. You killed children. Did you think there would be no response? It was a legitimate military operation. The crystals are strategic resources. The crystals belong to the Velthani. The colonists were under Earth's protection. You chose to ignore both facts." Vextar tried to stand straighter even as his ship continued to die around him. "I am a warrior of the hegemony. I demand the rights of a prisoner of war." Dong-hyun's expression didn't change. "You lost those rights when you started executing children. All ships continue bombardment. No survivors." The last Corvin ship exploded in a flash of light that could be seen from the planet's surface. The alien invasion force was completely destroyed. Not a single enemy had escaped to carry word back to the hegemony. On the surface, the rescue operations continued. Human medics treated wounded colonists while engineers began repairing damaged buildings. The crystal gardens that the Corvins had destroyed were carefully restored with Velthani help. In the underground shelter beneath what used to be the school, Sergeant Hyun-soo found them. 43 civilians, mostly children, hiding in the darkness. They were dirty and scared and hungry, but they were alive. And among them, holding tight to her teacher's hand, was 8-year-old Kim Da-yoon. "Are you the rescue people?" she asked in a small voice. "Yes, little one," Hyun-soo said gently, removing his helmet so she could see his face. "We're here to take you somewhere safe. My daddy was fighting the bad men. Is he okay?" Hyun-soo knelt down to her level. He had read the mission reports. He knew about Kim Taeho's final stand, about how one man had held off an entire squad to save these children. "Your daddy was very brave," he said carefully. "He made sure you were safe. That's all he cared about." Da-yoon nodded solemnly. Even at 8 years old, she understood what that meant. "Can I see my mom?" she asked. "We're looking for her right now." "Don't worry, we'll find her." They did find So Young 3 hours later in another shelter on the other side of the colony. The reunion between mother and daughter brought tears to the eyes of hardened soldiers who had seen too much war. But the mission wasn't over yet. Earth's fleet spread out across the system, hunting for any remaining Corvin forces. They found supply ships hiding behind asteroids. They found communication relays trying to send warning messages to the hegemony. They found scout ships preparing to flee with intelligence about human capabilities. All of them were destroyed. "Sir," reported Captain Seung-woo, "all enemy forces in the system have been eliminated. What are your orders regarding the hegemony?" Admiral Dong-hyun studied the star charts displayed on his command screen. The Corvin hegemony controlled dozens of worlds across this sector. They had been expanding aggressively for years, conquering weaker species and enslaving entire populations. "Prepare a message for transmission to all hegemony worlds," he ordered. "Full spectrum broadcast, maximum power." When the communication channel was ready, Dong-hyun activated the recording system. His words would be heard across half the galaxy. "This is Admiral Park Dong-hyun of the Earth Defense Fleet, speaking to the Corvin hegemony and all who would threaten human civilians. 4 days ago, your forces invaded the peaceful world of New Hanyang. You murdered innocent colonists. You executed children. You believed there would be no consequences for your actions. You were wrong. A human fell defending their child. Earth has answered with judgment and fire. Your invasion force has been completely destroyed. Not one of your ships survived to carry word of your defeat. Let this be a lesson to any who would harm our people. Humanity will defend its own with overwhelming force. We will hunt down those who target our civilians. We will show no mercy to those who show none to the innocent.